Stoa is a digital campfire where we cohere in dialogue about what matters most at the knife's edge of what's happening now.
Cool. All right. Welcome, everyone, to the Stoa. I'm Peter Lindbergh, the steward of the Stoa. The Stoa is a place for us to cohere in dialogue about what matters most at the knife's edge of this very moment. And today we got Richard D. Bartlett and Ronan Harrington. Richard is the co-founder of Lumio, the Hum, and Inspiral. He's an overall bottle of awesomeness. and Ronan Harrington, a system changer whose mind is always on the future. And he's the founder of Alter Ego and currently works for Rethink X. And true story, when I was on this podcast circuit in 2018, everyone's inviting me on podcasts. Ronan actually took my podcast virginity. So thank you, sir. It was the very first podcast I was on. And so how today came about, Richard wanted to test, field test a workshop. And anytime Richard asks me for anything, you know, my brain short circuits and I just say yes. So we are here. So I'm just going to tag in Richard and Ronan, and they're going to kind of walk us through the workshop today, which is about obviously depolarizing conversations. So I will unmute everyone or give everyone access to unmute. I'll tag Richard in, give him sharing permission, and I believe you want to do some check-ins. All right, so I'll unmute you guys. Want me to go first with the check-ins?
Yeah, go on.
All right, check-ins. Feel a little self-conscious, maybe 5%, but just sort of like, almost like about to jump on a wave of calmness, if waves can be calm.
As for me, I'm right here on the brink. I'm sitting on the fence between anxiety, which is like, oh God, this is new. This is the first time I'm trying a thing and it'll be okay, but it won't be as good as I want it to be. And I don't like that part of the learning curve. It makes me feel small and silly. But that's only one side of the fence. The other side is like enthusiasm and excitement. And the embodied experience of that is confusing, whether I'm anxious or excited. So I'm like trying to convince myself that, no, it's just excitement and this is going to be great. So that's me, a bit giddy and happy to have some homies in the room with me. It's really happy to see you all. How are you doing, Ronan?
I'm not really sure. I'm basically, I live in the UK countryside, so I'm just off a 3-hour train on transit to another train to go to France for this gathering Rich and I are running, this Alter Ego gathering. So I feel kind of like mid-travel, and I've scrambled into a delightfully quiet cafe to do this workshop. So I feel quite ungrounded, but like delightfully unattached, and just really a big fan, Peter and co, of what you're doing. And it's just amazing that people are gathering in the middle of the day just to chat about what go on. So I'm really happy, and I think we've got something interesting, and I'm really happy to share it with you all.
Peter, before I forget, it's really important that we just record the start bit and not the second bit when we're asking people to be sharing things. So I'm going to try and do the smallest version of the lengthy lecture that I have been summoning in my head for the last few days of like all of these different ideas, and just give the like essential pieces of it. And what I'd like us to do is basically a bit of setup and then some practices. And there's going to be one practice, which is your own private reflection. So I'm going to bring you some questions and you're going to think about them. And take notes, get a notebook or write on the computer, whatever, just have your own private process. And then the second part will be an opportunity for us to practice having a conversation. And it's a conversation that hopefully has some polarities in it, has some tension, has some like energy and enthusiasm in it that could get difficult. And we're going to practice like, how do we hold that tension in a generative way? That's what we're going to try to do. And it's the kind of thing where you can hang back and you're not going to be pressured to participate. It's going to be fine. So the kind of conceptual the content that I wanted to just put into the room to have some kind of shared starting point. Ronan mentioned alter ego. It's a network of social change people, political people, and we're trying to become better versions of ourselves so that we do a better kind of social change, I guess. Like, how do we grow up? How do we support each other to grow up and be more mature and make better, generative, happier, more curious change? And one of the dynamics that gets in the way of that is how we show up in groups. And so that's my real curiosity, is like, how does this person called me show up when I'm in a group, and what kind of social reflexes do I have? Like, how do those reflexes change my behavior, and can I become more aware of them and maybe show up in a more mature way? So the conceptual piece that really blew my mind actually came from Peter. So I'm going to start there. We'll share this. If you haven't read this white paper by Peter and Connor Barnes, I recommend this every couple of weeks to a new person. The Memetic Tribes of Culture War 2.0. And it's a long read, and it's worth it. It's from 2018, and 2 years on, it's still got a huge amount of material in there that both Ronan and I feel very resourced by, and it's really informing, like, how do we do the work that we do in the world? And I'm not going to try and summarize the 38-minute read, but there's a piece in the middle which I want to look into with some depth, which is this table. Beautiful spreadsheet, and anyone who knows me knows that spreadsheets are my happy place. So what this table is attempting to show is what Peter calls Memetic Tribes. So down the left-hand side, we have this list of different tribes. And then across each row, we have some properties about these tribes. So this map is not attempting to be accurate or comprehensive, but just to give a name to some of the different groups that are currently active online, like the social justice activists, who I, for instance, identify with. And what are we doing? We're trying to end oppression. And what are our values? And where do we meet? What kind of identities do we prioritize? And when I saw this list, this non-complete list of all these different tribes, it was like, like going from a view of, oh, there's this planet called Earth, to realizing there's this whole universe, or potentially a multiverse of tons of different solar systems. And like, each one of these rows has thousands of, well, potentially millions of people, some of them. They have a really comprehensive sense of purpose and mission in the world. They prioritize a different set of values. They have different meeting places, different sources of media that they're paying attention to, different heroes. They've got really unique language, you know, the way that they describe themselves and the way that they make sense of the world is quite unique. And a lot of times, the language is that maybe they're all speaking English, but in a way where it's very difficult even to have a shared understanding about what you're talking about. And so this is the context in which we're organizing. This is the context in which we're pulling together these social change activists who are trying to make the world better. And we have to pay attention to the tribe that we're in and the tendencies that we have towards a really toxic kind of tribalism. And that's really a huge focus of mine in general. So we have options, I think, like when we find ourselves positioned somewhere on this table, and I'm sure none of us will feel like, oh yes, this totally gets me, you've got me, I'm one of these new atheists, you've got me here. But this idea that we are in some kind of in-group, I think we have an option, we have a possibility about which posture, how do we occupy that space. So on the one option, we have what I call ideological micronationalism. So this is the worst side of our in-group and out-group dynamic. So this is like, our beliefs are the right beliefs. We understand what's happening in the world and we're right. Therefore, our people are unique and superior. And therefore, you should listen to us. We should be kind of in a position of leading the rest of all the other people. And everyone else really, we should be in a fight with them, either because we want to conquer them or we're going to try and convert them. And if they really knew how the world works, they'd understand that we were right all along. So that's kind of like the worst posture I think that we can take. And what we're trying to do with alter ego and with this process that we're going to play with today is find a different posture, which is not like a nationalist posture, but something that's more pluralistic. And we've been playing with this idea of complicated majorities. And that's a phrase that I picked up from some activists in Barcelona. I also saw it repeated in Taiwan as well. And it's this idea of we're heading into a future that is going to be drastically different. And it's either going to be drastically different because we've run out of energy and the nation state has disintegrated, or it's going to be different because we've figured out how to have a thriving and just and equitable and sustainable society. Either way, it's we're undergoing a lot of change, and we'd like that change to be done democratically. And therefore, we need a complicated majority to achieve it. That means we need to be able to step outside of our little row on the table instead of just being us, you know, like our crew is mostly a bit of here, some of this, I'm an occupier, so that's me. Instead of me and my crew kind of taking over the world, we actually have to learn how to build complicated majorities with some of the others. So how do we do that? I mean, this is the big puzzle and we don't know, but this is what you've been invited to work it out with us. I think a big part of it has got to do with curiosity. So it's like being curious about what we don't know, rather than being so attached to what we do know and how we're so certain about how the world's going and our beliefs are the right ones. We're actually cultivating intentionally our curiosity about the unknown. And that curiosity extends to other people. Not that we don't assume that they are stupid and wrong and just needing to be converted. We assume that they have had distinct experiences which have led to them having different values and beliefs. And maybe a posture of curiosity could open up a genuine relationship. Maybe I could learn something. Maybe we would change each other's mind if we allowed each other to really open up to a genuine conversation. And there's a kind of internal curiosity that happens as well, which is about paying attention to our own motivations and emotions and our social reflexes. Like, what is it that is, am I purely being driven because I want to see a socially just world? Or is there also some of my own stuff around belonging and my psychology and my emotions also playing out in that process? So we want to try and like unpick some of that. Really don't like presenting to a screen. It's much nicer to stop sharing and now see all your faces again. So I want to get into a practice because this is like I can practice, I can do the tell, but what we need is the show, I reckon. And to learn how do we do this together. So there's the first phase, which is going to be an invitation for you to just write some notes for yourself in silence. And I've got some questions to get that ball rolling. Ronan, if you feel like we need to add extra questions or prompts, please just jump in and do it. But just to get the ball rolling, what I want you to be thinking about is, what are some of the in-groups or the tribes or the collective identities that you're currently affiliated with? Like when you looked at that list, where there's some you're like, yeah, I'm kind of this, or I'm definitely this, or I'm kind of a bit that. And can you think about what are some of your own doubts, or like are there thoughts that you would withhold from those groups because of the risk of being judged or ostracized? Or you're like, I mean, I'm part of that collective, but I wouldn't want them to know this about me. So I think we start there, and then I'll add you some more prompts.
Maybe just helpful as a prompt in a